Oh.
Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday Social. Hope everyone's well. We've got a special guest, Russell. Thank you so much for joining us.
Not special. Thank you very much for having me, Sam. And I do apologise. I should have been here a lot sooner. It's just time aligns and slots and days. But I've always wanted to be on the show, matey. I've always wanted to be on. It's
Well,
just.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
we need some top trumps cards, don't we? We've had like TV, we had Mark at Long Island, we've had you on. Like
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what my top trump would look like. To be fair, Sam.
with the different statistics on it. Maybe we should do that. Watch reviewers top trumps.
Someone needs to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, should we kick it off with a wristwatch check? Mark, we'll go to you first. You're in the hot seat there. What are you wearing?
It's the right way around. So I am wearing the Omega Speedmaster Mark II Racing Dial Edition. I'm not quite seeing the orange.
That's beautiful.
It is a bit of a chunky boy, but that's what happens when you slap a coaxial movement onto a Value 7750X. Wow. So there you go. It's not slim, but it is cool.
That's a hefty modular watch there, Mark, isn't it? That's beautiful.
It's over 200 grams, I think. So yeah, and that's size for me. So you get used to it.
Wow, that's special.
So Russell, your neck. What are you wearing?
I've got my SPB 411 on, my Navigator Timer reissue.
Nice.
Yeah, nice.
I absolutely love this, and it'll be to do with the sort of like your topic you're talking about today, and what value is in watches and stuff like that. It just, when I saw it to start with, it just sung to me in all sorts of levels, which it does to us, and sometimes we can't explain it. But I love the watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big part of the topic today as well. But before that is definitely a future classic, that Seiko watch. Like I thought it would have sold out like straight away, but you can still get them, can't you?
You can. I'm very surprised, to be fair, but there we go.
Todd, what are you wearing?
Well, I was on the same wavelength as Russell today, and but I'm wearing an OG Christopher Ward 63 GMT. Love this watch, and it will always be a part of my collection at this point.
Got the name on the dial and everything.
Yeah, that's old school one. As soon as it was released, as soon as that one came, I was like, I'm buying that watch.
And then I'm wearing my Seiko, which I reviewed this week, the SNE 593. I remembered the reference, but yeah, my trusty Seiko quartz. That's what I've been wearing mostly this week. I also reviewed it, and I've also got something else interesting that I'm going to be reviewing this week. It was the downfall of Hodinky. Hopefully, it won't be the downfall of my channel, but we'll see how we go. I'll leave that little teaser there.
You're reviewing the travel clock.
We'll see how we go. Not that travel clock.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Okay, so we've invited Russell on because we are going to be talking about how good are we? Basically, I watched 2 TikToks before it gets totally banned in the US. I'm getting like doing a TikTok binge, and there's 2 TikToks. One I can't find, admittedly, and that was about how basically the gist of it was that watch reviewers are really bad at assessing the value of a watch, and the example he used was the Tissot PRX with the Powermatic 80, saying that everybody gushed about it online, but actually the movement's not that great for the value. So that was one. And then also Luke, who's a fan of the show and in our watch group, sent me this one, which we won't watch the whole thing, but the watch regulator, which is hilarious. Has everyone seen the watch regulator on TikTok?
No.
He's not right in the head. I'm not really sure. I enjoy his videos.
Yeah, he's funny. I think something happened where he worked for Omega and a few others as a watchmaker, and then he got fired or something, didn't he? Or he left under. So he's doing TikTok, and it's funny because he starts every TikTok. He does like a bit of a parody. He's also got a podcast, and his parody starts every TikTok with "I'm the most famous Swiss watchmaker, and this is my." This is my opinion on this, and that's how he starts every video. And I was thinking today, I'm like, he's doing it as a joke, but for like the millions of views he's gotten on TikTok. Arguably, he could be the most famous Swiss watchmaker still in.
Yeah.
Anyway, he did this assessment of like what watches, in his opinion, are actually worth. So he had like the Nautilus. He said was worth about $3,000 in terms of parts, and he did the Seamaster and stuff like that. So it got me thinking: how do we assess value as reviewers? But also, what do we think is good value, and are we actually any good arbiters of assessing the value of a watch? So, and I made that as a statement instead of like a question. But
I was telling you before we went on, like it was a difficult one as I've been thinking about it all afternoon, because every one of these trinkets is a really emotional decision. And so you go like, I don't know what is real value for money. I know what it's more than I want to spend for it, but I don't know that that's the gauge for that.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's the question. When you're looking at a watch, do you consider value, and then what value is it? Is it monetary value? Is it how it's going to fit into your life value? Is it rarity?
That's good points. Good points there. How is it? Is it going to value your life? Is it? It's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one because someone like you as well, Sam, that reviews £50 Casios, £30 Casios, and then you review expensive watches that I know that you've bought, like your Grand Seikos and stuff, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. We all know that it's all similar. 316L steel. Most of these watches. It's very difficult. It's weird to say, but I do tend to only review watches that buzz me, whether it's the story behind the watch being made, the history behind it. Something's got to pick me up. The value, I feel like the value for me is more than the specs that are on the paper. I'm such a massive thing for that, and I get flooded with people telling me to look at this watch, this watch, that watch, this watch. But this watch, this is so much better than a Seiko. Look, it's got a 4 hertz movement. It's got sapphire glass. It's got all this and that and this. But it's just I see value in not just monetary. I will never buy a watch, guys. I don't know about you. I will never buy a watch and think, how much could I get for this if I sell it? I will never do that. Because I feel like the value is in what am I going to get out of this watch, and what's it going to do with my collection? Am I going to wear it? That's massive to me. And the watches that stay in my collection, I honestly do feel that way. But it's very difficult. Like Dave, Mark's got his that's a very special watch that he's got there that you probably would struggle to find again, Mark. Would you be able to find that?
They were never very popular when they came out.
No, the rare ones aren't.
So could I find it? Yes, it would probably cost me more now than it did when I bought it 8 years ago. This one's been serviced. It's been polished by Omega because it's a scratch magnet. If I hold it up, the air molecules are scratching it as I speak. No, serious. But it would be tough to replace. It was my first Omega. It has value to me. Did I buy it as an investment? I had no clue when I bought it that watches could be investments. I've never bought a watch as an investment, and I'll be lucky if any of my watches have not lost 30% or 40% of their value. So that's all I kind of care about. It's never been, I don't buy Rolex. I was not buying Rolex in the hype or Patek or Audemars Piguet. So I buy watches because I like them, not because they're investments.
Well said.
Yeah, I am a little bit naughty. I do think about the resale value of some of my watches because I'm so I don't know. I was just saying this to Todd before. I like collecting watches, but I'm also I don't like having like a lot of them. So I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm going to wear all these, and then I end up, selling them on. So, and at the start, I was kind of lying to myself about that, like, oh, I'm just selling the odd one here or there. But now, actually, I'm thinking about.
Well, I just came to terms with being a hoarder, so it's okay. I'm a hoarder. I hold watches. That's fine.
I was thinking too when Russell was speaking earlier. One of the things that I think that I like, that I find a value in, is I think that all of us kind of are like ambassadors, to the watch world, to our group of friends, to our circle of friends, and I love to be able to have a story to tell. So as opposed to just some knockoff or some department store thing, to be able to say, I bought this watch, why? And if it's an expensive watch or a cheap watch, it's fun to be able to have it tell something, a story to share with somebody.
Yeah, that's a great thing, Todd. I mean, I've been to a couple of watch meets, and no one comes in with a Tissot PRX, for example. They won't come in because it's a Tissot PRX. There you go. That's my watch. Yeah. I put it down there, and there's a story behind the watches that people bring in. There's value. And you can feel the energy, you can feel the excitement, and you can feel how much they feel about their watch that they've got. And it's really infectious at times. And I think for me, that's a big thing. That's a huge thing for me.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, no, I actually, totally agree. Because I've been to those watch shows when I lived in California, and it was literally that. It was super high end stuff, but also I remember it. One of the shows it was the first day or something, or the first week that the Timex had come out with that GMT, that retro GMT, the one that looked like a bit like a Rolex, and this guy had it on. So there was a guy with like a on the table full of like Rolexes, like every year of the Submariner, but everybody was like crowding. Oh, let's have a look at that Timex. Let's have a look at that.
That's the only one you could get straight away, probably. That's why.
Yeah. It was. I think it was like was it the Batman or the Pepsi one they released first? But yeah, I agree with you, Russell. Like I put a lot of value in the story. That's why this week I'm just plugging my own channel there for some reason. When I reviewed that Addis Dive, or somebody corrected me actually, it's Addis Dive or whatever. I don't care enough to even pronounce it properly, but that was and it was another. And if they're watching it, it was actually another YouTuber that corrected me, and I was dying to ask, how do you feel when people correct you in the comments? But I help you. Although I've just said it now, so it's basically said. But yeah, they make obviously homages, to put it nicely, of certain watches, but there's no story to it, is there? There's no like this, like I would never buy a Submariner, but I feel like it has like a story, like those Comex divers they actually used it as a tool, didn't they? And that it has that the design the reason it's designed like that, or a lot of watches, and even like the Citizens and stuff like that, they were designed for a purpose, and I like that story. Like, what was the purpose? Why are these? Why is the crown offset, for example?
Yeah, I mean, and for me, if the only purpose that the brand is there is to make homages that are a third of the price of the ones that they're trying to copy, so that they can sort of almost try and get in those people that can't quite afford the watches that they actually want. If they're all their purpose, their point of sale, the reason why they're there is to make homage watches. It's just, I don't want to know. I just don't want to know them. I don't want to know it.
Yeah. So well, that's good. So I think the first we have the first value here is that we all and unless everyone disagrees with it, we really value like the story of a watch and like stuff like that. Do you agree with that? Mm-hmm. No, Mark, you don't.
Oh,
you don't like the story.
Would you like to poke the bear a second time, Sam?
Oh, come on, let's go.
You can't. You're not. You have a really well thought out watch collection. That I refuse to believe that you just look at the specs and then.
I don't even look at the specs. I just go, do I like it? Do I not? Then I say, well, does it have Roman numerals on it? And if it does, that's a higher mountain to climb. Is it less than 40 millimeters? Well, that's an even higher mountain to climb. But I'm not saying I wouldn't buy watches that that break the rules, because it's the rule breakers that are interesting to me. But a watch that's associated with a film star, could care less. A watch that's associated with a movie, could care less. A watch that's been to the moon, whilst I'm really into the Apollo stuff, I could care less, because it went through a bidding and testing process. It could have been any watch that passed. It just happened to be the Speedmaster. And military watches, don't even start me on the story of military watches, because unless you've got one that's actually had a bullet go through it, it could be any watch. It's there for a purpose. So unfortunately, I am unemotional around stories, but I buy the watches I like. And if they have a story attached to them, I'm a Seamaster fan. Doesn't mean to say I think I'm James Bond or really care about, other than Sean Connery and Pierce Brosnan, most of the Bonds were crap. So why would I?
Let's not
care
go there,
about the
Mark.
Seamaster?
Come on, Jesus. Let's not go there.
At least
mate.
I
Come
said
on.
Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Because that's indisputable.
You're giving me merch ideas here. I don't think I'm James Bond. That's got to go on a T-shirt, doesn't it?
Oh,
I like this.
You should Sam, you've met me in person. I am the least James Bond person you could ever meet.
Well, maybe that means you're the most. Maybe you're a real life James Bond. You're hiding in plain sight.
I'm doing a damn good job then.
Okay, so not to kind of poke the bear again, but your ProPlof though, I mean, that's got that whole watch design is the story. Like, it looks.
This is what he's talking about.
The story.
Not
many
right
people just kind of look at the design and they're like, "Oh, I quite like the look of that." Usually, they like the story about it, trying to challenge the Submariner and.
Well, but the story of the ProPlof really is about why it's designed as it is.
Yeah.
Let me put it up again.
Story. That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
So you sit there and go, yes, it's got a button to change the bezel. That's why, because when you're a professional diver, before dive computers, you didn't want the bezel moving. Then you look at the crown guard. You don't want the crown guard being pulled out. And then you look at, why is the minute hand so big? Because that's what you care about. You care about the minutes, not the hour. You look at the hour hand, it's almost certainly not there.
He's defeating his own argument. You are telling the whole story of this watch right now.
Well, the thing is that this aside from the dial is as ugly as sin.
Yeah,
right?
Well, exactly. So you've got
the features.
story.
The features that give it its design language,
yeah,
were not pulled out of someone's backside.
Yeah, that's the story.
That's the story.
That's not the story. The story would be why Comex picked Rolex over this. That's the story. The design, the features in the design aren't the story. That's why it looks like it does.
So you have even more of a story.
I'm turning into Pete McConville. So that
Yeah, well, we'll have to actually. We can't forget Pete. Pete sadly couldn't join us, but we have to go over his equation at some point.
Oh, I love this equation.
He actually has a value equation. So we should definitely go over that. Maybe put it in my notepad, and we can cover that later. Okay, so everyone likes the story except Mark, who says he doesn't like the story, but actually does like the story.
There's a whole story.
I tell you, that's the thing. I mean, for someone that owns a ProPlof, I mean, crikey, yeah, you there's a reason why you like that watch, and it's different, and there's a reason why it's different.
Well,
there's a reason why they did it.
Yeah. And that dial is stunning. Yeah. That's why that dial. I said, like any of the other ProPlofs, I don't like. I've tried on the titaniums. I've seen the older steel ones. When I was offered that. In fact, the only story about that watch is that that's the one watch my wife caught me buying, and then she looked up the price. So yeah. So that's the story behind that watch.
See, another great story. This watch has its own mini series.
Yeah.
Well, mostly involving me in the doghouse, to be fair.
Well, I mean, I think that this value of the story, though, is, I mean, a lot of brands are just, I would say, are more built on the story on a story than others, but all of them have a story to them, don't they? Like Rolex, definitely a lot of story. Even like Rich at Studio Underdog, a lot of story there, isn't there, in the design and why they're designed that way.
I think what's happening is Mark is confusing the corporate story versus the story I tell of why I love my watch.
Okay,
maybe is that where we're confused and maybe thinking two different things, Mark?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I'm with you.
Because
the story doesn't matter to me. But I'd like to be able to tell like why I bought this watch and what I love about it. That's my story. So I guess you and me are writing the same story.
That was why I was irritated when the Speedmaster got polished, because it took out a lot of the battle scars. So I could tell you where each one of those battle scars came from.
Did you see this design atelier comment, Mark? I found a Speedy Mark II at a pawn shop. I got it for $350. Wow.
Yeah.
And he's also in Aruba, so we should just ban him now for being lucky and warm. That's just wrong. Wrong on both counts. Sorry, Design Atelier.
My dad bought his first Speedy, but it was a long time ago. But it was a guy who was trying to buy a Rolex, and he has that original 1970s Moonwatch with the radioactive dial, and he got it for about $300 or $400 for some guy who was just saving up to get a Rolex.
There you go.
Which is a great story. I love to hear that story when he brings it out.
Yeah, because that's like a lot of the great. I mean, I've got watches that I inherited, and it's about that's about that story, even though the watches are quite affordable. Okay, so we value the story. Do we value, when you're looking at the specs, does anyone like really value the movement in particular, like whether it's in-house, whether it's an off-the-shelf movement? If do you value whether it's been regulated or like
well, you like it to tell the time, but that's unlike most Seiko NH35s, you actually do want it to tell the time rather than guess. But in terms of I struggled up this mountain to design a watch, it's a very Zen thing. No. But you can then, if you've got something that's massively decorated, or they've put a lot of thought into not only the functional design but the aesthetic design of the movement, you can see that on some of the independents, that the design is spectacular. But is that part of the story or part of the watch?
Mm-hmm. Russell, what do you like? Do you focus on the movement as part of your assessment?
Not really. It depends where the brand is and where the company is. Like Yema at the minute, they're doing their own in-house stuff, so I don't think Yema gets the credit it deserves with the stuff that they're doing. But it depends on how big the company is, and when you've got a brand like Squale, which I do like, I really do like Squale. They have in off-the-shelf Solita movements inside theirs. They're a brand that I appreciate more for the case design, because the case design is very historical through with Bloc Band and Longines and so on and so forth. I'm not really. It depends on the price, obviously. So if the Squale 1521 is £3,000 and it's got a Solita SW200 in it, then you got to look at what that's not right, because you know how much a Solita is on other brands. That's when you I think you only question value when it's over the top in money. I think I don't think I question it any other time.
Have you ever, actually anybody? Well, I'll start with you, Russell. Have you ever bought a watch that based on the movement, and you were sort of half and half about the actual looks of it, but you were really keen to get the movement?
No, it'd be the opposite for me. It'll be all the Seikos. It'll be the Willard that I love, my SPB 153 with the 3 Hertz movement in it. That's £1,000. £1,000 for a watch with a 3 Hertz movement is very hard to take around the watch market. When you've got a Solita that does a 4 Hertz movement, it's very hard to take that at times, but it's the only way you're going to get an SPB 153. You know, that's the only thing I've never really thought. I guess the only one is the Accutron. That's the only one that I don't care how the case comes or what the watch comes. I'm always on the lookout for an Accutron. That would be the one.
You mean like the retro tuning fork, or you
The
mean
old
one of the
tuning
newer?
fork ones, yeah.
Yeah. There's
The electrostatic ones are just too big. They are awesome machines, but they're just too big. I don't think they can make them any smaller. But that's cool.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of comments here. So Michael A says, depending on the price point, anything over 10K should have an in-house movement. Interesting. And then Arthur says, not fussed about the movement really, but the cheaper ones tend to be thicker, which often makes those pieces chunky and less comfy on the wrist. Yeah, great point there. I don't know. I think I do care about the movement in stuff, and that's why I've got a roller coaster relationship with Seiko. I really like the Seiko quartz movements, but the more affordable, like the 4R 35 type movements, I'm not a huge fan of them. I've had a debatable experience with them, like with timekeeping. I had one actually that went wrong, and we dismantled it on the show, and we did an upload on it. So that's what puts me off the Seiko lower end mechanical watches, but I'm all over their quartz stuff. But I also think some of those watches some of them I don't think are good value, but some, Todd, we were talking about this, weren't you? Your son's got that GMT Seiko, which I think is like for $400 or whatever. It's great value, that new.
Yeah. That is one. I was going to go back to the conversation. Specifically, what's funny to this topic is, so this is my favorite everyday watch. This is my Tudor. It's the Black Bay, the bezel-less version. And when the buzz started that they were going to make the in-house one, I went on a scramble to get this one with the Sellita movement instead, because I wanted to be able to have it serviced by my local watchmaker, as opposed to send it off to the Tudor factory, because I wanted that local. I didn't want it to go away for 6 months. I want to take it to my guy, have him fix it, and come back to me and still have a reliable movement. So the in-house wasn't the selling point for me. Although I have an in-house Tudor, I'm dreading the day I have to get it serviced. I don't know what that's going to cost me.
It will probably be a very pleasant but expensive experience.
Yeah.
So Robert says, my 4R36 is 5 seconds slow per day, but perhaps I got lucky, Sam. Yeah, I think sometimes they do. There is a luck of the draw, isn't there? I think that's one of the things with Seiko. They put a big variance on their website, don't they, which covers all bases. But I feel like, when you're paying like $1,000 or $2,000 for a watch, you like to think, like Jack Mason, for example, they use Miyota movements, but they regulate them. They actually go to the effort of regulating them. So you think that Seiko are actually making the movements, would have like some kind of advanced,
not at the price they're selling those movements for.
No, that's a factory. They're just pumping them out.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is interesting, isn't it? Tafka says, servicing is a killer, that's why quartz is king. Well, actually, that's not technically true. If you've got one of those Breitling quartzes or whatever, like I had the Breitling B1, and these are like, I know you mean kind of like affordable quartzes likely, but the high-end quartzes can be, sometimes they can't be serviced, can they? I mean, that was the thing with Grand Seiko's 9F, wasn't it? That it can be serviced. I mean, they actually put that in the sales thing. Okay, well, should we go with some examples of what we think watches are good value? I don't know. Shall I flash them up, or did anyone want to start with this?
Let's not confuse good value with low price, because people tend to assume good value means low price, and it ain't necessarily true.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just what my picks do.
Value for money.
Okay. Yeah, Todd, do you want to?
Go on, Sam. Let's see what you got.
I don't know how. So we're already getting halfway through the show. So I brought two watches. So I'm going to bring up both and discuss why both. So the first one is so the Sega design. I like this brand. I didn't think I was going to like them at first. I thought, oh, this is like an homage band, but it's really, I don't think that it is. They've won several awards internationally for their watch designs. Sam, you've reviewed a couple. These watches are well made, fun watches to have. That can be. This one's very inexpensive. I think the one you had, the World Time, was a pricier watch, you know, but still for what you were getting, I thought, man, that's a lot of watch, and it's a nice conversation piece and not expensive. Now, back to what we were talking about before, Mark. So, not that this is cheap, but it's also not expensive. I think the Tudor 1926 is a good value for money watch, and I explain it away this way, that it allows you to get into what would be a luxury watch, quote unquote, entry price point for a very good price point. Bracelet may be one of the best you're going to get at this price point. It is like butter, like a Rolex type bracelet. Solid movement, very thin watch. I think this is under 10 millimeters. It's a Sellita movement, yes, but for what you're getting, and again, that story of like, this is a high quality Swiss engineered watch that didn't break the bank, that will last me a lifetime, that I will be able to give to my kids one day. And I think that's a very good value. So those were the two extremes on mine.
Was it a Tudor? What? Was that a Tudor? Sorry.
Tudor. Yeah, it's a Tudor, the Tudor, the 1926.
Okay, awesome. And it's got a Sellita in it.
Yeah, it's either Sellita or Etta. There was a period where they were ETA, and then like I don't know what's actually in it. I've never cracked it open yet. I don't want to crack it open, but it's either a Sellita or an ETA. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah. Okay, so they're your two examples of good value.
I think they're good value for money. What do you guys think? Bring it on.
Yeah, Todd. I just respect your thought on it. To be fair, I don't really have any. Seiko design were getting reviewed left, right, and center by literally everyone, including Sam.
Yeah.
I'm just quite a reserved when it comes to the design of watches. So I appreciate what Seiko design does, and they have gone outside of the box. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, I mean, if you like the design, then that's cool, really cool. And the Tudors, the ones that don't have the in-house, the older ones, I think there's a lot of value. There is a lot of value in those watches, and I think a lot of people do tend to look at the movement straight away and don't appreciate everything that's gone into making the outside of the watch and the bracelet and everything else. I think some people dismiss watches from movements if they're not happy with it, but some companies, I know, they spend so much money designing and making the cases and the straps and the bracelets and everything else, and I feel sorry for them when someone slams it straight away because it's got a Sellita SW300 in it. You know, you're not thinking as much, you know. But yeah, I mean, I don't have anything that I can say. I've got Erebus watches from Jody that I've reviewed that on paper, for the money, I know we're not talking expensive, Mark, but on paper they beat everything. They really do beat everything in that price point. But it's, you know, is that watch giving you something? Gives that watch? I don't just look at a watch and say, oh, I like that. I will look at it. I'll lust after it. I'll Google it. I'll research it. I'll see 8, 9, 10 different reviews on it. Oh, there's something he said new about it, or she said new about it, and I will be obsessed with that watch. And if it's just the specs and it's just the looks, then it's not going to grab me as much. But that's just me.
No, agreed.
We had a great question come in. I don't know how we're going to tackle this one, but Fraser Nash says, apart from loving a mechanical movement for all the work that goes into them, why do people love quartz? Cheaper movements, if not only for accuracy. Educate me, please.
I think he forgot, why do they not love them, is what he means, right?
Oh, why do people love... Oh, Why do people
Brutal.
love a quartz cheaper movement?
I think there's.
Well, we
I think
can
you know
take
what he's
that both
saying.
ways.
His name's
Yeah, I
Russell.
guess.
His name's Russell. So he's a good lad. But yeah, explain yourself, Russ. Explain yourself.
Yeah. Do you mean why do people like quartz movement? Why do people like quartz movements as well as mechanical movements?
Or why do people like mechanical movements and not quartz?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a bit of a when you get into watches, I think that's a bit of a bell curve, isn't it? You're like, oh,
Yeah.
really? Everything's got to be mechanical. Oh, no, it's like, oh, actually, quartz. Okay, well, there's some decent quartz, and then you're like, oh, okay, I quite like quartz again.
And
Yeah.
then there's Citizen Solar. So it's just like,
Yeah.
once you get to those, there's like, okay, perfect, done.
Yeah. Perfect
Yeah,
watch.
yeah.
Done.
Yeah, I mean, and some quartz movements are very like high technical, aren't they? Like the thermocompensated quartz Breitling use, and then obviously the 9F series that Grand Seiko use.
Or, the Citizen A0100 or A060 that are 5 seconds a year if you keep them at sensible marks. I mean, you've got to be, was it 10 seconds a year to be called an accurate quartz these days by standard?
Yeah, right.
I think there is a standard, because there was one of the was it a Longines or something else that called itself a high accuracy quartz, and then because it was 20 seconds a year, it suddenly wasn't.
What I love about Grand Seiko, Sam, as well, is the fact they grow their own quartz. I mean, and they choose their own quartz, and only some make it. That's really cool to me.
Yeah, that is great. It's like a quartz Squid Game.
Well,
There's like an Asian man in a robe
as a
carefully
Seiko
walking
quartz.
through.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
My life is over.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that'd be yeah. Get a guy sat on a bamboo floor with his each quartz gets passed through, and he's like, no.
I mean,
Someone walking through the quartz forest with his hands behind his back.
I failed the Seiko quality test. I'll go to Rhonda. Now there's what snobbery for you.
You just started a fight.
Oh dear. Okay, so we've done. Okay, so let's. Russell, do you have an example of a watch that you think's, should we say, meets all of your values? Should we say, or rather than is it good value, so that Mark's not,
Well,
he bought a ProPloth just on the whim.
But that's why I put on this Navigator timer, because I feel strong about the history of a watch, or at least a good story behind it, or why the brand's around, why are you around? If it's a new brand, why are you here? What are you doing? I feel very, I'm almost not obsessed, but I love to know why, like a micro brand comes out with a brand. Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? What's the reason? Did you have watches as a child? Were you obsessed and stuff? Was it in your family? And I buy into that sort of stuff. Seiko, obviously, no. But I absolutely love reissues. I love reissues of watches, because if we're being honest, mechanical watches are a dead sort of art, really, to modern life. And I love the best ones that were done a while ago for me. And when I come up with a reissue that is a like for like size, because a lot of reissues come out bigger, because they feel like the modern men or women need a bigger size of this reissue. But when the watch comes out as it was in 1968, the bracelet is exclusive. When you look at Seiko, you think, I've got an exclusive bracelet there that's not on any other Seiko. That's what I really love. The GMT hand is very stubby. It's unusual. Probably wouldn't be my massive thing that I want the most, but it just all works. It just all works for me. The movement inside, I think, is a 6R. I think it's a 6R35. And that's the one downfall with this watch, but it's not a downfall that made me think I don't want it. That's the thing. I just accept it. I've got another watch that I've got in my hand. I love Vertex. I'm a huge Vertex fan because of their history. They came out in the 20s. I think they were established at the same time as On the Road. the shop was set up at the same time in 1926 as Rolex, I think, by a guy called Claude Lyons. But the fact that the watches are now, they went out of business in the 70s and 80s. They were brought back to life in mid 2014-15 by a blood relative, so the great grandson of the founder. And I love that, because I know, that every watch he's going to make is a celebration of his great grandfather's work. So I know there is these watches are not cheap, by the way. The Vertex M36 is not a cheap watch. I think it's £2,000. And the amount of people that say, "Oh, get a Timor, get a this, so much more cheaper." What is the price? Well, I know where these watches are made. I'm not allowed to say where these watches are made, but they're made in the same place as watches we all know in Switzerland. Yeah. And they are made with watches that are £10,000-15,000. No expense has been spared. When a movement is decorated inside, but there is a closed case back as well, it's just little things that I appreciate a lot in Vertex, and they're probably my favorite brand. I know Mark don't like the military watch type thing, but I just like legibility, Mark. That's all I like in military watches. That's what I love.
They were one of the 12. They were one of the Dirty Dozen, weren't they?
Yeah.
Well, not only were they one of the Dirty Dozen, I think they were the only only
British one, I think.
Yeah, only British brand. So that's another little thing that I cling to. Yeah, where we all know that the likes of Longines, IWC were making watches for the other side at the same time, but we won't go there. But yeah, it just embodies everything I love about watches. Even this one I got here. I'm sorry, I'm showing loads of, and I've got the full metal square, which I know Mark's got at least 4 of these. This watch is a celebration, 35th year of the first G-Shock, the G-Shock Square, and that's what I love. I love a reissue, but done. It's a full metal G-Shock. It's crazy. I love that. I love all that stuff. That's what I buy into. So yeah, sorry, I'm waffling. Sorry.
No, I love those squares. Yeah.
Just to counter I do have 2 of these GW 2310s.
Very nice, Mark. Awesome, Mark.
I used to have 3, but one of them seems to have gone in a car that I sold. It got stuck in the trunk, so I don't know where the 3rd one went.
Oh,
you used it.
Look at what Todd's got.
Yeah,
he's got
everything
the 50/40.
That establishes value for me in a quartz or a digital watch. It's got no bloody batteries. It's solar, so I never have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. That's adding value to me.
It is.
Yeah,
it's got time zones and all this stuff, and anything that kills this has killed me 15 minutes earlier. So let's think about that.
Russell, thanks for gifting more memberships. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that joined this week as well. Very much appreciated.
Cheers,
yeah, okay. So, well, there you go. So we've got another, Mark, you do value utility then?
We're peeling back the layers of Marcus.
I'm going to talk to Helen and have you reprogrammed.
Marcus, our Shrek. We're like, it's like an onion. We're just getting at it.
I bought the first one when I went to Iceland for my 5th wedding anniversary, because I didn't own a GMT, and this has got lots of time zones. That's the one that I lost. I bought the second one because I lost the first one, and I bought the third one because Sears was closing down and they were selling them off for $20.
Wow, steal.
So you can't beat one of these.
Robert,
if you needed a one watch, it's this.
Robert made a great point. Where was that, Robert? Where is he? He says, "Yeah, I mean, listen, this G-Shock is a absolute. I mean, you're talking about your Plo Prof is a scuff monkey. This G-Shock here, this is ridiculously scuffed all over, and it's what I call the paradox G-Shock. It's a G-Shock that has been designed with steel to take the same amount of beating as the resin ones, but we're never going to see it in action because it's too pretty. It's too pretty to bash about. So yeah, it's a paradox G-Shock. You know it can do it, but you're never going to see it in action. I just think it's pretty.
The titanium Gundam G-Shock that they made. You sit there and go, it was $1,700, and I'm still pissed that I didn't buy it.
Well, but it had a negative display. That was the only bad thing.
But you sit there and go, no one's ever going to wear it because that orange and black titanium case, you look at it, it's scratched, you're done.
Yeah.
I actually like that. I will get one of them high end. I've got those titanium G-Shock squares. I did have that. I have got that metal one that you've got, Russell, there. But I find it a little bit too shiny. I think. Yeah, I find it just a little bit too shiny for me, but I do like those titanium ones, especially that black one with the rubber, the sort of John Player special color scheme. Oh, beautiful. And I guess that is value in the story, isn't it? Because that module is probably a couple of dollars maybe, the Bluetooth module, but it's there. That's the story about how each part is like individually machined on those titanium ones, isn't it? And they've actually gone to the effort of like super hard.
Yeah, they're on an assembly table that's in the shape of a G. Have you seen it, Sam? These very high end ones, yeah. So as soon as they're assembled, they go along this line, and it's in the shape of the G, and it's all on that table. Yeah, on that table is the best of the best of the best. If you make that, you're in the Men in Black. You are the best of the best if you're on that table, and that's like the Grand Seiko workman. Yeah, it's quite cool to see that.
Yeah, I think I have seen that, but yeah, it's Jason,
I like this comment from Trap Vision here, talking about his G-Shocks. He survived 2 deployments and 3 roadside explosions. That's a watch. That's value right there.
Where's that comment? Where? Let's have a look at this. Trap Vision 3D.
Superb, my friend.
Yeah, my Casio's. Mine survived 2 deployments. Which Casio? Oh, you've got to tell us which Casio it is.
Come on,
would be awesome.
Don't leave us out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like it. TJ Jason, he's got a Citizen that he took when he was deployed in Afghanistan, and he liked it because this was a value in utility, like Mark's favorite thing. It's because the Citizen had a half time zone, and like Afghanistan's a half time zone or something, and he could set it to. So that was like value in utility rather than value in monetary terms.
I want to respond to Rob Brown here. Buy that Hamilton Aviation from Interstellar and love it. I wish I had not sold mine. That's one of those I regret getting rid of. Yes, buy that watch. You don't need another suggestion.
Awesome. And so okay, so we value utility, we value the story, except and then do you know what? I don't know whether I had a couple of watches that I think are good monetary value, but I don't know whether is that a bit uncouth now, Mark? Have we gone past that?
Oh, we are so past that. Let's just keep going.
What do we think? Actually, Todd, you and I were talking about we could have made this whole thing about Seiko, couldn't we? Because Seiko's such an interesting brand in terms of the emotion that like the watch community has about it. Obviously they sell like to the normies, don't they? It's probably one of the biggest brands that sells along with Citizen to people looking for a cool watch. But within their range, I would say the stuff that has like I would consider really good value but also quite poor value. I mean, I made videos on it, so we could have made this whole thing about Seiko, couldn't we? We were chatting before.
Yeah. Before I answer, I just want to recognize. So Trap Vision says it's the World Time AW80. Isn't that one of the lesser expensive ones too? Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah. Let's pull that up.
Then we'll get back to Seiko because I'm fascinated. I want to know which one this is. Sorry, guys. I know what I'm being a little ADHD.
I think Anna Digi, if I remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That is a cool one.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you know who else wears this watch? Ben from Ben's Watch Club. I think Ben wears this watch as well. Yeah, we wore it when we met up. Look at that. I mean, those bracelets are a bit of a on my hairy arms are a bit of a hair puller. Those lower end Casio ones, but that rubber one. Oh, integrated bracelet as well, right on the trend.
Yep.
Yeah, wow.
Very cool, man. Thank you for sharing.
Yep, that's a good one.
Mm.
Good story
Seiko,
value and price.
what's the price? Oh yeah, so Seiko is a challenge because like as we were talking about, I love this new. I've been seeing this ad on TV constantly on the Seiko, the new Presage cocktail. No, it's not a cocktail time. Presage one. That's their classic series. It's a gorgeous watch, but the jump in price from my cocktail time Presage, I was like, where are we going? How are we going from a $300 watch to $1,000 watch? It's just it's a leap, but it's a gorgeous watch. I can never understand Seiko's pricing structure. I was like, I want that for $500. Can we do that?
But with Seiko's pricing structure, you just wait 3 months. Because no one ever buys a new Seiko, and no one ever buys a Seiko at retail price, because they're going to be 30 to 50% off within 12 months.
Do you know
this
what?
Is like a Seiko Datejust. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's. Do you know that is an interesting point you made there, Mark, about value, even though we're not talking cost, as per your instructions.
No, there we're talking price. We can get into the philosophy of the difference if you want, but I don't recommend it.
Yeah, one of my friends at work went into. I won't mention who the brand is, but he went into a boutique and bought a watch, and then realized that by looking online that the watch was like available much cheaper, and quite a lot of the big brands do, but they must. That's an interesting thing about value, isn't it? Because he then kind of changed his mind on the watch, thinking that he'd basically been, he basically paid for it.
Had he been in a civilized country like the UK with the Consumer Protection Act, he could have taken it back.
Yeah, I don't know whether you get away with that in the US. You wouldn't do a talk.
No, you couldn't.
No,
unless it had a fault or something like that. It's much tougher in the US, but countries like the UK that actually care about the consumer, then you have recourse.
Well, just buy it on Amazon. You can return anything to Amazon.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. or buy a Christopher Ward and use 60/60.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, Christopher Ward's another one that I think is good value.
Yeah, I don't know how this.
I was going to nominate the Bel Canto as a good value watch, even though it's not cheap.
That's the brand, right? I thought this was going to be an all Christopher Ward gush fest, because how do you beat
not this week?
Not this week. Next week, maybe.
You can't beat their 3 times price model. Like, there's nobody pricing their watches like they do. So done. Great watch.
Yeah, I mean the Bel Canto. Russell, you've reviewed the Bel. Did you review the Bel Canto?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Over reflection, first of all, it's a phenomenal thing to look at. So I had the original one with the blue dial. It's a very light watch, very light, really light, and to the point where if you move it, it goes ding.
It does, and it rattles.
Yeah, it rattles. It's weird because it's in a sports watch case. It feels like, because it's titanium. There was no polishing with it because it's titanium and it's hard work to do in whatever grade it was. I wasn't left, crikey, I need to listen, I'm selling a car, I need a Bel Canto. I didn't get that feeling, but because I'm into my military inspired looking watches anyway, but I thought, crikey, this is not Christopher Ward. This is going to open doors for them, and crikey, as it opened a revolving door and it hasn't stopped, has it? Let's face it.
Yep.
Yeah. What a value value both in them bringing a complication like that to the market at that price, but also like an incredible value to them to open them up to, because I always think that we've talked a bit about 3 of us talked a bit about how important the story was. I always think that Christopher Ward struggled a bit with the story, didn't they? Like behind the watches, like they did do a lot of military stuff in terms of squadron orders and stuff like that, but actually the story behind some of because I think their dive watches are awesome, but there's not
the funny thing is with that Bel Canto is that I don't know if you've spoken to Mike. Have you spoken to Mike, Sam?
Yeah.
I don't think they didn't realize how big it was going to be. I honestly,
No, it took them completely by surprise.
Yeah, they didn't realize at all. It was like a side project. That the person that were making it, the designers had a great idea, but the people that were trying to think in their head, right, this is an absolute ball buster to do this. I don't think they realized just what an effect it has had on there. To the point where they've got new premises and an inbuilt coffee machine in their HQ. You know, they've completely transformed because I speak to Patrick all the time. It's like, that's the Bel Canto money. And it's like, it's like this is completely transformed, which tells you they're not stopping. They're not going to be stopping there. And they didn't with the 12. I think they've gone and went big. I went to a dinner do at Christopher Ward, and they were showcasing their 20th year watch, which was the 12 skeleton. And I'm not a massive Genta fan, and I'm not a massive skeletonized fan. No disrespect, Todd, with this Seiko design, but I remember I'm really simple when it comes to dials. But crikey, I mean, this from where they come from, and I had a C65. I had a C65 dive watch that I had back in 2019, 2020. To think that this 12 looks like a Zenith Defy, and there's Bel Canto came from the same brand. They're almost going to become a Seiko in the fact that they're going to have watches that are 200, 250, 300, 400 pounds, and then they will have watches that get to that 5, 6, 7,000 pound mark, and then it's right. How do you define Christopher Ward? How do you define Christopher Ward in 5 years' time? Where do you see the brand going? I mean,
well, it goes from they go from what, £500 for the Valor, the quartz chronograph, through to several thousand, 3,000, 4,000 for the Bel Canto now.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing with the Bel Canto, wasn't it? Sorry, the thing with the Bel Canto was when they
the 12X isn't the 12X is significantly expensive.
Well, yeah, what I was going to say is, like, to Russell's point about the Bel Canto taking them by surprise, the reason that they were delayed, the second lot, is because exactly that. Like, they had all of the manufacturing set up to make, was it 500 the first?
300.
Yeah. And then they had to, like, go back to the people and be like, hey, can you make now thousands of these? And some of them were like, no, they had to rebuild the supply chains, didn't they? They had to source the materials on bulk. Some of them, Mike covered it.
They were made on CNC machines, weren't they? I mean, proper laser cut. I mean, not laser cut. I mean, just ridiculous stuff. The time it took for them to do it, and yeah, I don't know if it blemished a little bit of the fact that I was the one that got the Bel Canto, and there was only so many about it, and now they've made 17 other colors of it, and now there's a dressy one, and then there's all these other ones, and I don't know whether if I was an owner I'd feel a little bit peed off. I don't think I would feel peed off at all, really, but it's, you know what I mean, it's like they know they can't make that blue one again because they said it, but doesn't mean they can't make a grape one. It's just,
well, they came desperately close to reproducing the first one with the British Watchmakers Edition blue. The blue was scarily close. But the dial
with
detail was
textured Union Jacking.
Yeah.
It was funny
the one I think that most irritated the original blue owners. Was that British Watchmakers one.
The Bel Canto was the only watch that I've ever kind of phoned other reviewers and asked them how they filmed it, because it's so, I don't know, Russell, the dome is so reflective, isn't it, on
very
it?
Difficult.
It was really difficult. It was one of the hardest watches that I've reviewed. Not in person when you're doing it, but when you got under the studio lights and you're trying to get in on the detail, it was, I think,
when you don't have a bracelet with it, I didn't have the bracelet with mine. It was, like I said, it was such a light watch. Really light, and it was basically the whole case was made to resonate, so that's why and it's like making these noises, and I don't know, I absolutely love the idea. I love it. I wouldn't buy one, but it's just me.
I was going to say I'll sell you mine.
So it goes says the Bel Canto is the Black Bay of Christopher Ward.
I don't think they can put a bezel on it. I don't think they can. I don't think
Find
they
a
could dress
military
it up.
one. Find a military one in the archives.
Well, it's the C60 is their Black Bay, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's face it. But yeah. It's
And
listen
going
for
back-
anyone that did. Sorry, Todd, you go.
No, go ahead. You go.
I'm
You
just
finish your
saying for
statement.
anyone that hadn't known of Christopher Ward until that bel canto, that is their signature, and then they go to the lineup and they think, wow, £450 for their first watches. That's weird. It's just, they've just got to be careful.
Well, and I was going to go back though, barring the bel canto, which is the one that is the bellwether everybody's aware of right now. But like you just said, that C60 though, when you got that C60 in hand for $1,000, I think it was. I can't remember the price point. You were holding a watch where you're going, this is markedly better than anything I had gotten from Seiko at that price point, from any other brand, where you're like, I feel like I got a luxury watch in my hand for $1,000. And they just had a very different, like they changed the game with their bracelets.
And that is a part of the selling point and the story. There's no middleman. We don't have a middleman. Seiko does have a middleman. They have to distribute it around the world, and there's people that owns all the HQs around the world and everything else like that. And you do feel like you are getting a bargain with Christopher Ward when you hold the amount that I've held. I know that I'm getting a bargain when I compare it to a Tissot. It's far better than a Tissot or even a Satina. A lot of the Satinas, I feel like a Christopher Ward. It's just for me. Christopher Ward have just been around just for 20 years, and I want more about them. That's why I really like the decompression. I just like the what was it, the super compressor. I really liked. I mean, why do that? You weren't going to make a lot, you weren't going to sell a lot, but it's just because they wanted to, and I love that.
Yeah,
and
they bought one at auction.
I must admit, I always like and I won't say criticism because I don't think that's what Russell meant, but they've only been around 20 years. It's funny how no one slags MB&F off for only being around.
Or Bell and Ross.
because they've got just as little heritage and history as any of the micro brands. So let's slag off MB&F for that too.
Yeah,
MB&F have only been around for 20 years. They've got no history. Who cares? But that's what Christopher Ward gets.
So actually, I think so. Does that mean that Andrew McCutcheon is the first ever Christopher Ward middleman from Time and Tide?
Possibly, yes, because they are in the studio now, aren't they?
Yeah.
But although that's not a pure retail model.
Okay, it's like a drop shipping thing, is it?
I don't know. I think they are available in store, but Christopher Ward pay to be there. And the studio also takes a slight cut. So Christopher Ward are probably taking less money per watch, but it's a great experiment for them.
Well, yeah, I suppose because they include shipping and stuff, don't they, as well? So maybe there's.
I know, because you can buy them in store, I believe.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if the delta between, because the free shipping,
yeah,
all that kind of jazz.
So it depends what they're paying for the studio space.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Well, we're at the hour. Did anybody have any final thoughts before we leave on the value?
It did become a Christopher Ward show in the last 15 minutes.
Casual,
Christopher Ward talk.
Yeah, casual watch talk is a stealth. It's the worst kept secret. We're a stealth Christopher Ward talk.
We're a Christopher Ward shillers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, another merch T-shirt. What was it we were going to make, Mark? I like the Seamaster, but I don't think I'm James Bond.
Probably.
I'm claiming the merch. I'm claiming the merch idea. Awesome. Well, Russell, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you, Russell. It's a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Nice to properly meet you, Mark and Todd. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on.
Same.
And you didn't have to be in the bath to meet us this time either.
So much easier though, Mark. It's so much easier.
Yeah, casual wash talk. It's a gift. Guys, thank you so much. Hey, big thanks to all the new members as well. I know a lot of you joined this week, partly thanks to Thomas, but thank you for everyone that really joined. Really appreciate it. Check out my reviews released. What review have you got coming up next, Russell? Can you say?
I've got basically a little bit of it's just a gift guide. So it's going to be a sort of watch gifts for Christmas, and I've got a Casio Forester that I've never seen before, and I'm reviewing one of those, and the rundown of my favorite watches of the year. That'll be what comes up, and then a couple of days, at least a couple of days off.
Yeah,
Nice.
You are doing a stellar job of that content.
No, thank you, man. It's
and my wife is a big fan of your wife's reviews.
That is a stroke of genius, actually. I feel like I could do it, but then he's kind of jumping on the
you're welcome to do it. You're welcome. The fact is, she doesn't like watches. That is the thing. She doesn't like watches. So when you, it's just when you build a watch up in a show for 10 minutes, and then I'm on a crest of a buzz, and then the wife's two lines just absolutely slams it down. It's like, welcome back to the real world. You're back to the real world. It's a watch that's £1,000. We could have bought a 100-inch TV in the lounge for that, or we could go on holiday for that sort of thing. This is a bloody watch. But
wasn't there one that's like reminded her? Was it something like reminded her of cigarettes or like nicotine stained wallpaper or something? It was like it had me in stitches.
Yeah, I can't remember which one, but yeah, that's definitely the case. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all the comments, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Thanks, everyone. Bye.